The air tonight is brittle and heavy, thick with winter and the unsaid. I walk slowly, deliberately, letting my boots echo across the concrete, each step a soft crack against the silence. In this part of Berlin, the East, silence holds a deeper resonance, the kind that doesn't ask to be broken. It is 1988. I feel the year more than I know it. The chill is not just in the air, but in the way people glance over their shoulders, in the way windows seem to observe rather than be observed. My coat brushes against the seams of old stone walls, and I pause beneath the skeletal arms of a barren tree. Its branches stretch like questions toward a sky that refuses to answer. I inhale, and the scent of coal drifts faintly by, sooty and dense, the perfume of a city clinging to warmth in every way it can. Somewhere a train groans softly. Somewhere a door is shut with care. The city breathes through seams, barely, but it breathes. The street I walk is narrow, though not by construction. It is the walls, the fences, the gray atmosphere that press it inward. Still I walk. I have no map, only memory and intuition, and something quieter, reverence. In 1961, the wall went up. I wasn't here, but I've read the silence in photographs, the suddenness in stories. This side, the East, was given its own pulse, a different rhythm. And here in 1988, it beats steadily, but without joy. A dog barks in the distance, not loud, not angry, just marking presence, like me. As I turn a corner, the buildings lean in. They are tall, but not arrogant, worn by wind, rain, and repetition. They carry stories in chipped paint and sagging shutters. Someone once painted a mural here, bright reds, workers smiling. Now it peeks through cracks, fading but insistent. Art trying to outlive regime. My footsteps grow slower, not from fatigue, but from immersion. Every stone seems to offer a fragment. This sidewalk has known revolutionaries and grocers, schoolchildren and soldiers. I wonder, how many feet have passed here trying not to be noticed? A street lamp flickers. Its light spreads like diluted tea on the wet pavement. I look up. The sky is ironclad, unyielding. No stars, just the low hum of electricity and state control. Somewhere above, someone is watching television. I can't hear it, but the glow pulses faintly through thick curtains. I imagine the scenes, a sanctioned play, perhaps a newsreader, rigid and calm. A woman sips tea, her fingers curled carefully around the cup. She is watching, but also waiting. For what, she does not say, even to herself. The sense of observation here is deep. The eyes are not always visible, but they are felt. I think of the Stasi, the Ministry for State Security. The name alone carries weight. In 1988, it is said that 1 in every 6 East Germans has informed on someone. A brother, a friend, a neighbor. Even silence can be suspicious. And yet, there is warmth. Not loud, not immediate, but quiet, resilient. A child's drawing taped to a window. The scent of freshly baked rye bread wafting faintly from a building I pass. A couple walks by, arms barely touching, but their pace synchronized like a shared heartbeat. They nod to me, cautiously. I nod back. The wall is not yet in sight, but its presence already shapes everything. Conversations curve around it. Buildings face away. Even thoughts hesitate. Yet I feel it. looming not as structure, but as ideology, shadow, and symbol. A lone cyclist passes, tires hissing softly over damp stone. His scarf trails like a forgotten sentence behind him. I wonder if he's late for curfew, or simply lost in thought. It's strange. I am walking in a city filled with people, and yet solitude is everywhere. Not loneliness. No, that would be too simple. This is a solitude that has texture, that smells of ash and hope, that lingers in stairwells and elevator shafts. It has grown here like moss, quiet, persistent. I pause in front of an old bakery.
It's closed now, its windows dark, but behind the glass I see shapes, loaves arranged in rows, untouched. The room is orderly, almost reverent, as if preparing for morning, even in a place where mornings are uncertain. I place my hand on the window. The glass is cold. A memory not my own rises, of a woman standing there in the dawn, her breath fogging the window as she decides which loaf to buy, ration card in hand. She hums, quietly, a lullaby, not for a child, but for herself. I step back, and the moment vanishes. Behind me, a cat scurries across the alley, its coat blending with the shadows. Even the animals here move with caution. The city teaches it. And I walk again. I run my fingers along the walls as I pass. The texture is rough, unapologetic. These walls have not been smoothed to comfort. They are honest in their wear, honest in their endurance. East Berlin is not loud in its history, but it is vast in its memory. Every corner offers a whisper if you walk slow enough, if you listen, and I do. I imagine someone once stood here, decades ago, waiting for someone who never came. I imagine a soldier lighting a cigarette before his post, a child throwing a ball too hard and losing it to the other side of the wall. Each imagined moment nestles into the space between the real and the remembered. The cold settles into my coat, but I do not mind. The chill here is part of the architecture. It keeps the silence company. As I reach the end of the street, I stop beneath another street lamp. It flickers again, then steadies. The concrete beneath me is wet with the day's thaw. My reflection is distorted in the sheen. And I smile, gently, not with happiness, but with recognition. This city is a palimpsest, scraped, rewritten, and scraped again. And tonight, I walk its lines not to change them, but to feel them, to remember what was and what tried to be. I breathe in. The coal smoke returns. Thick, human, necessary. East Berlin, 1988. The concrete speaks, and I walk with its echoes. The scent of coal hangs thick in the air tonight, like a memory that refuses to leave. It drifts from unseen chimneys, clinging to the cold, wrapping the streets of East Berlin in a dense, familiar shroud. I breathe it in slowly, letting it settle into my lungs like dust stirred from an attic. It's not a pleasant scent, not clean, but it is comforting in its own strange way. It smells of homes trying to stay warm, of people who wake early, feed the stove, and wait for the warmth to reach the corners of their rooms. As I move forward, the coal smoke becomes more than a smell. It's a presence. It winds around my ankles like fog, follows me down narrow alleys, seeps into the folds of my coat. I imagine it collecting under awnings, resting like tired breath in stairwells. In this part of the world, in this year, the air itself holds on to what it can. A woman passes me on the opposite side of the street. Her coat is long and faded, her scarf wrapped tightly. She carries a netted bag, empty but hopeful. Our eyes meet for a moment, and I nod.
She doesn't return the gesture, just continues walking, her heels clicking rhythmically against the pavement. Another sound added to the city's subtle orchestra. Behind her, a plume of smoke rises from a squat building, curls into the dusk like a lazy signal. I follow it visually until it blends with the gray sky. That building might be a communal housing block. I imagine small apartments inside, 2 rooms, maybe 3, the kind where the wallpaper has bubbled from dampness and the windows sweat from the inside. In one of those rooms, a child sits near a radiator, sketching something with stubby fingers. Maybe a house with a fence, maybe something that doesn't exist here. The coal burns quietly in the stove nearby. The heat is uneven, but it is enough. His mother cooks cabbage, the sharp tang piercing even the heavy air. Outside, the smoke rises.
Inside, life continues, small and soft and unspoken. This is a city of containment, of rationed warmth, rationed dreams, but not rationed love. That still flows here, though it moves carefully, like the smoke. In 1988, heating is state-regulated. Coal allowances are distributed for winter, often insufficient. Many buildings rely on communal boilers. Others, the lucky few, have old tiled stoves, passed down like family heirlooms, the kind that glow red if fed properly. They require tending, watching, care. I stop in front of a bricked courtyard. A narrow chimney rises from its center. A boy emerges from the building, dragging a metal bucket behind him. It clangs once, then steadies. He tips the bucket into a metal hatch at the base of the chimney. Ash puffs out, catching in the wind like the last breath of a forgotten fire. He doesn't look up. He's done this before, many times. His hands are gray with soot. He pauses after dumping the ash, and for a moment I think he might notice me, but he doesn't. Instead, he tucks his hands into his jacket and disappears back inside, the door creaking like a tired voice. The smell of coal follows him. It trails him like a story not yet finished. I walk on. My boots scuff the ground, and I glance down. The sidewalk is littered with old leaves, fragments of newsprint, and flecks of black, ash probably. Some of the leaves are still frozen, curled like sleeping insects. The rest crack underfoot, reminding me of autumn and how it must have looked here before the cold set in. Around the corner, I hear a low hum, not mechanical, but human, a song maybe, hummed gently, almost to oneself. I follow it, drawn more by its softness than its melody. The voice belongs to an old man sitting outside a basement-level shop. He is bundled in layers, his cap pulled low. In his lap rests a small brazier with glowing coals. Not many, just enough. He stokes it idly with a stick, coaxing life from it. As I approach, he looks up.
His eyes are clear but tired. He nods once, permission to share his heat, if only briefly. I stand nearby, letting the warmth touch my knees. We say nothing, just exist together in the space the coal has made. The brazier crackles once, sending up a tiny spark. The old man watches it rise, then vanish. "Cold tonight," he murmurs. I nod. He doesn't expect a conversation. He returns to his humming, and I close my eyes for a moment. The scent of the coals here is different, more immediate, less filtered by chimneys and distance. It's the scent of fire near the skin, raw, present. For a moment, I am not a traveler. I am simply someone trying to stay warm. I open my eyes again. He's looking down at the coals. "They don't burn like they used to," he says softly, almost to himself. I think of how everything here has been told to burn slower, to last longer, to endure. Eventually, I nod a quiet farewell, and he lifts one hand slightly in acknowledgement, the kind of wave people give when they're too tired for anything else. I continue down the road. The streets grow narrower, the buildings closer. I imagine that warmth here isn't just physical. It's shared in glances, in bowls of soup, in borrowed scarves, in silence too. I pass a laundry line stretched across a courtyard. A single pair of trousers hangs there, stiff with frost. The smoke from the chimneys curls above, while below, life moves in quiet repetitions. Someone sweeps a stairwell, someone shakes a rug, someone waits by the window for no particular reason. There is no glamour in coal smoke, no poetry, unless you look hard. But to the people here, it is memory. It is necessity. It is the scent of survival. I pause beneath an archway. From here, the sky opens slightly. I see the edge of the wall, distant still, like a seam at the edge of the fabric. Its presence is quiet here, but firm, like the cold. Another chimney exhales. I watch its breath mix with the air, become part of the city. I wonder how many dreams have passed through these chimneys, how many stories have curled into the sky, never spoken aloud. And then I walk again. The scent follows, but fainter now. Behind me, the old man's brazier continues to glow. Somewhere above, the stoves hiss gently. The city exhales once more. And I breathe in, deep and slow. East Berlin, 1988. The smoke carries everything. There is a particular kind of gaze that lives behind the windows of East Berlin, subtle, deliberate, and quiet as snowfall. I begin to notice them more now as I wander deeper into these aging corridors of concrete and soot. Curtains twitch slightly. A silhouette pauses. The glint of an eye reflects for a second before vanishing into shadow. It isn't suspicion exactly, nor curiosity. It's habit, refined over years of learning to look without being seen. The buildings here are tall and narrow, pressed together like worn books on a high shelf. The windows are small, and many are fogged from within. Still, behind each pane of glass, life simmers. In the hush of the street, I feel those lives reaching out, not with voices, but with presence. Each window is a story unopened, folded tightly like a letter never sent. I walk slowly. My boots tap the rhythm of my passage. Above, a window creaks open just enough to allow stale air to slip out. A woman leans forward slightly, her elbows resting on the sill. Her hair is pinned back. She wears a sweater that looks handmade. She doesn't look at me directly, but she sees me. I can feel it. I imagine she does this every evening, leans out to taste the wind, to check the rhythm of the city. Perhaps to count how many people pass, or maybe she waits for someone who never comes anymore. The curtain flutters behind her, caught in a lazy breeze. She notices and pulls it back without urgency, just a motion, smooth and practiced, like tying a shoelace. She sighs, a quiet, tired sound. Then she disappears, and the window closes. Above her, more windows, layers of lives stacked one upon the other. I see an old man trimming a houseplant on a windowsill. He wears suspenders and no shirt, the radiator's heat making him indifferent to the cold outside. His lips move silently. Perhaps he's reciting a poem, or remembering a name. These glimpses are fleeting, but they cling to me. Not because they're dramatic, but because they are not. They are the proof of life in stillness, the kind of life that persists quietly beneath regimes, beneath ideology, beneath the frost. There was a saying in the East, Die Wohnung ist das Einzige, was uns gehört. The apartment is the only thing that belongs to us. And even that was not entirely true.
The state could enter, could monitor, could remind. But still, behind those windows, people held on to the last slices of private space. A corner for thought, a table for soup, a lamp that glowed not for propaganda, but for warmth. I stop in front of a yellow building with balconies painted in peeling white. On one balcony, a cage with a canary. The bird doesn't sing. It simply hops once from one wooden perch to another, then back. Its feathers are slightly puffed from the cold. Behind it, the balcony door is open just a crack. Enough for sound, enough for air, not enough for escape. From inside the apartment, a radio hums, a soft melody, maybe classical, Beethoven perhaps. The music spills gently into the alley below. A balm, an offering. I close my eyes and let it touch me. When I open them again, the bird is watching me, its head tilted, tiny eyes curious. In East Berlin, curiosity is a quiet thing, safer that way. I keep walking. As I pass more buildings, more windows reveal fragments. A mother brushes her daughter's hair. A boy presses his face against the glass, leaving a foggy imprint with his breath. He draws something on it with a finger, a sun or a flower. It fades almost as soon as he finishes. A man smokes by a cracked window, his ashtray balanced precariously on the sill. His cigarette glows like a firefly in the dusk. He takes slow, heavy drags. He's not looking out at the street. He is looking somewhere beyond it. I wonder who he used to be, what he almost became, and whether he still dares to dream in full sentences. The windows of East Berlin are not just apertures, they are boundaries, between what is spoken and what is felt, between control and longing, between the outer world shaped by the party and the inner world shaped by memory, hope, and routine. In 1988, to look too long through a window was to risk being seen looking. And yet, everyone looked. Out, in, at each other, with eyes careful and full. I pass a school building now, tall and somber. Its windows are dark, the classrooms asleep. A single paper star remains taped to a pane, frayed at the edges. Perhaps left from the new year, perhaps from longer ago. A child's handwriting is barely visible on the tips of the star. Hoffnung, hope. A light flickers inside the adjacent apartment block. I pause, look up. A man is playing an accordion near his window. The sound is muffled, shaped by glass and distance, but I can hear it. Something wistful, perhaps a folk tune. No one stands with him. No one watches from nearby windows. But I wonder how many ears turn toward him tonight, even if no one says a word. The accordion wheezes softly, like a city exhaling after holding its breath too long. I move on. As I pass another apartment, I see lace curtains part slightly. Just a hand drawing them back, then releasing. I never see the face, but I feel the gaze. The people here are watchers, not in the paranoid sense, though that exists too, but in the human sense. In a world where saying too much could be dangerous, seeing became everything. A shared language, silent and sacred. I think about the old stories, how people learned to write letters with invisible ink. Here, people write their stories in glances, in gestures, in the careful placement of furniture too close to the window, just for a view. In one window, a candle burns. No reason, no ritual, just presence. Its flame trembles, golden and small. It doesn't try to push back the dark. It just insists on being there. That's what life feels like here. Not rebellion, not submission, presence.
The last building I pass has a series of windows at ground level, like eyes lowered in prayer. A boy presses his palm against one of them, looking out at the street. Our eyes meet, and for a long second, we simply see each other. No fear, no excitement, just two people noticing. He smiles, barely, the kind of smile that's private. Then he turns away. I continue walking. Behind me, the windows return to stillness. East Berlin, 1988. The eyes behind the glass have seen everything. There it is. I feel it before I see it, an invisible pressure in the air, like gravity thickening. The street narrows slightly, then spills out into a quiet stretch of open space. And there, cutting across the world like a scar, stands the wall. Its presence is absolute, immovable. I have walked for what feels like hours through streets of soft eyes and soft fires, but now all softness fades. The wall has no warmth. It doesn't pretend to. It rises cold and pale against the iron-gray sky, a slab of poured concrete and ideology. A statement. I step closer. The ground near it is clean, almost too clean. No litter, no graffiti, no children's chalk drawings. Only gravel, raked recently, and a line of harsh metal fencing that runs in tandem with the concrete giant. Between the fence and the wall, the Todesstreifen, the death strip. A silent, sanded emptiness. A line that breathes nothing. This is not a border. It is a sentence. I stand just shy of the fence. The wall looms above me, at least 3 meters high, topped with a rounded pipe to prevent anyone from gaining purchase.
Its surface is stained, rain-worn, and colorless from this side. The other side, I've heard, bears graffiti, names, colors, protests in paint. But from here, East Berlin, the wall is sterile, untouched, untouchable. I do not touch it. My hand hovers near the cold metal of the fence, and I feel something strange, not fear exactly, but a sense of awareness so sharp it becomes physical. Eyes may be watching, cameras, guards. The wall does not sleep. In the distance, a guard tower stands, tall, gray, and narrow-eyed. I see movement behind its small windows, a shape, a shift in posture. The rifle is not visible, but I know it's there. Everyone here knows. In 1988, there were still over 300 watchtowers like this one, some manned, some automated. The wall stretched nearly 160 kilometers, coiling like a concrete serpent through neighborhoods, parks, even graveyards. It separated not just east from west, but brother from sister, mother from child, friend from friend, and always it watched. I exhale slowly, my breath visible in the cold. It floats briefly, then disappears into the open space between me and the wall, joining the long silence. Not far from where I stand, a plaque is embedded in the ground, small and bronze. The inscription reads, An dieser Stelle fiel am 5. Februar 1989 Chris Geffroy. Wollte in die Freiheit. At this spot, on February 5th, 1989, Chris Geffroy fell. He wanted freedom. But it's not 1989 yet. The plaque hasn't been placed. He is still alive, somewhere in this city, not knowing what waits for him. The wall carries stories not yet written, lives not yet lost. I walk along its base, the crunch of gravel underfoot sharp in my ears. A crow calls from somewhere behind me, echoing through the empty corridor. On this stretch, the wall passes behind an apartment complex, its presence just outside the view from their back windows. I imagine someone standing there, looking not at it, but because of it. There are no shortcuts here.
The wall demands detours, in streets, in thoughts. At a narrow checkpoint gate, a single guard stands with his back to me. He is still, gloved hands clasped behind him, cap low over his brow. His breath forms small clouds as he shifts his weight. We are close, but not. He faces the gate, I face the city. We do not acknowledge each other. In my pocket, my fingers curl around a smooth stone I picked up earlier on the street. I hold it now, rubbing my thumb across its surface, grounding myself in the ordinary. The wall makes everything feel slightly less real. Like a set piece, like a stage for invisible actors. But it is real, too real. I remember reading once how the wall had two sides, the real wall and the symbolic one. This one, this physical barrier, was just concrete and engineering, but its shadow, the idea of it, was wider, heavier. It stretched into every conversation, every dream, every doorway. A line not just across geography, but across belief. A man and woman walk by, several meters away. They don't look at the wall, not once. They speak softly, heads tilted toward each other. Their hands brush, but do not hold. The wall is here, beside them, yet they move as if through fog, eyes trained ahead. It's not ignorance, it's exhaustion. You can't stare at a wound forever. I find a bench nearby, old, wooden, the paint flaking away in long, tired strips. I sit. From here, the wall becomes almost a horizon, flat and gray and unbroken. I imagine what's on the other side. Neon signs, Western music, supermarkets filled with too many brands of cereal, or so the stories say. But over there is not a fantasy either. There are struggles, there are illusions, there is distance. Still, it is different. Here, in East Berlin, in 1988, the wall still divides not only cities, but narratives. Truths are not agreed upon. History wears different uniforms depending on which side you're born on. I lean back. A man and woman walk back. A small flurry of snow begins to fall, soft, sparse flakes that melt as soon as they land. They dusk the bench, the gravel, even the edge of the wall. The wall doesn't notice. It does not soften. The first attempt to cross was made just days after construction began in 1961. Since then, hundreds have tried. Some succeeded, many did not. Some tunneled beneath, others hid in trunks or forged papers. Some flew in balloons, others drowned in canals. The wall was not just an obstacle, it was a measure of desperation and courage. I think of the children born on either side, growing up with the wall like a river their parents forbade them to cross. How strange it must be to grow up beside a barrier and be told it is protection. I rise from the bench. The wind has shifted, and the coal smoke from earlier no longer follows me. Here, the air is cleaner, but not kinder. As I prepare to leave, I place the smooth stone I had held onto on the base of the wall. No ceremony, just placement, a marker, a whisper into stone. For all who stood here, for all who didn't make it, for all who still wonder if it will fall. East Berlin, 1988. The wall does not speak, but its shadow listens. The soft clatter reaches me before I see it. That unmistakable metallic song, the hum of an old tram gliding along the tracks with a gentle rattle, rolls through the stillness like a memory with wheels. I turn toward the sound, and moments later it appears. A yellow and red tramcar, squat and sturdy, its windows glowing faintly from within like a lantern passing through dusk. It moves slowly, as if the city itself is too tired for haste. I step aside, watching as it crosses an intersection ahead of me. A thin electric cable hums overhead, connecting the tram to its energy source with a subtle spark. There's a kind of poetry to its motion, not proud, not swift, but enduring. Inside, a few passengers sit stiffly.
Their bodies sway gently with the car's rhythm, heads leaning against frosted windows. One man reads a folded newspaper, his fingers blackened faintly by ink. A woman cradles a bag of groceries in her lap, bundled tightly. A child stares blankly out at me, his breath fogging the glass in quiet circles. The tram doesn't ring a bell. It simply glides on, turns a corner, and disappears. And with it, silence returns. That's the thing about East Berlin in 1988. Sound is rare and meaningful. Every clang, every hiss, every scuff of a boot on pavement feels intentional. In the absence of noise, the city has learned to whisper. I follow the tracks for a while. They run like lines of thought across the cold streets, routes that connect and divide, much like the wall itself. These trams have seen generations. Their worn wooden seats have carried students, soldiers, lovers, spies. They have overheard quiet conversations and shared secretive glances. And yet, they are never in the stories. They are the background, unnoticed, unchanging. But I notice them now. As I pass a stop, a faded sign swings gently in the wind. Its paint is chipped, the schedule behind its glass warped from moisture. Still, people wait. A woman stands under the awning, her coat pressed around her, as if it might shield her not just from the cold, but from time itself. Beside her, an old man holds a thermos. He watches the tracks, not for the next tram, but with the weight of someone who remembers every route by heart. He catches my eye, just briefly. He doesn't smile. He doesn't look away. He simply sees me, and I him. I think of how many people have stood just like this, waiting, not just for transport, but for movement, for change, for anything beyond repetition. For decades, these rails have promised arrival, even if the destination never really changed. The wind picks up slightly, and I tighten my scarf. A light snow begins to fall again, dusting the empty tracks in pale white threads. They curve gently to the right, disappearing between buildings like the spine of a story yet unfinished. I imagine a couple here, years ago, maybe newlyweds, waiting together for a tram to the lakes in the north. He carries a bouquet. She wears red gloves. Their fingers touch lightly, not quite holding hands. When the tram arrives, they board silently. They sit beside each other and say nothing the whole way. But in their silence, everything is said. Sometimes I think the trams remember us, the people we were when we rode them, the hopes we carried, the secrets we held just beneath our coats. In the 1980s, East Berlin's tram system was among the oldest in Europe still in regular operation. Some cars date back to the 1920s, patched and repaired again and again. Their wheels screech on corners, their brakes exhale like tired lungs. But they continue. A sound rises behind me, a tram approaching. I step aside again as it appears. This one is nearly empty. The doors slide open with a sharp hiss, releasing a breath of stale, warmed air. No one disembarks, no one boards. But for a moment, the city exhales through that open door. I don't enter. I remain still, hands tucked in my coat. The driver glances toward me, bored and expressionless. Then, with a sigh of its engine, the tram closes its doors and moves on. I follow it with my eyes until it rounds a bend and is gone.
There is something deeply human in the way these trams move. Persistent, gentle, circular. No urgency, just duty. They remind me of people here. Not defiant, not defeated, just enduring, with grace. Up ahead, the tracks split at a junction. One line veers off toward the government quarter. The other runs alongside the outer ring of apartment blocks, the prefabricated slabs known as Plattenbauten. Functional, identical, built to last, not to inspire. I walk along the second line. The street quiets even more here. The buildings grow taller and the sky narrows above them.
A layer of frost has settled over a parked tram, out of service, its front face dim and empty. It looks like it's sleeping. Nearby, a child rides a wooden sled down a small slope, squealing softly. His parents stand at a distance, watching, carefully. Their eyes scan more than just their son. They scan the space, the silence, the watchers. Still, the boy laughs again, and the sound dances across the tracks, briefly, beautifully. And then he stops, notices me, watches as I pass. I nod, and he lifts one mittened hand in a wave. In another world, maybe he grows up to drive one of these trams. Or maybe he leaves, never returns. Or maybe he stays, like the rails, like the buildings, like the silence. A signpost nearby reads Lichtenberg, an old working-class district known for its tram lines and its resilience. The kind of place where history doesn't shout, but accumulates. At the next curve, the tracks vanish again behind a wall of warehouses. A cat sits on one of the rails, tail curled neatly, watching me. Then it rises and walks away, perfectly balanced, as if following the tram's path. The wind brushes against my collar. I close my eyes briefly and hear it, the faint hum of the power lines above, the memory of wheels, the ghost of a bell. East Berlin, 1988. The trams carry more than passengers. They carry time. They appear suddenly, as if the city were exhaling its truths in bursts of paper and paste. Posters, slogans, declarations. I turn a corner and the walls seem to come alive, not with graffiti, but with promises. Red ink, block letters, bold fonts. Propaganda, yes, but also something softer, worn at the edges, curling in the cold, faded by weather and time. The first one I see is of a smiling factory worker, sleeves rolled up, raising his fist with pride. Vorwärts zum Sozialismus, it proclaims, forward to socialism. His face is broad and strong, but the colors have dulled. His eyes have lost their shine beneath the grime and peeling. Around him are other posters. Women in kerchiefs clutching bundles of wheat, children holding red flags, soldiers saluting with unwavering posture. Idealized, stylized, frozen in an optimism that feels like it belongs to a decade already gone. I pause in front of one that shows a young girl reading from a textbook, a teacher standing proudly beside her. The caption beneath reads, Bildung für eine bessere Zukunft, education for a better future. I wonder who printed it, and whether the teacher in the photo still believes that future is coming. A breeze lifts the bottom corner of the paper. The paste beneath is dry, cracked. The image flutters once, then settles back against the concrete. These walls, these posters, try to speak in the voice of the state. They call for unity, for vigilance, for discipline. But the city whispers in its own way, and the people, I think, hear both, or neither. I look closer at one image, a soldier's face, drawn with sharp lines and perfect symmetry. He's holding a child in one arm, saluting with the other. Behind him, the outline of the Berlin Wall, stylized as a fortress. The words are, Unser Schutz gegen den Faschismus, our protection against fascism. But the irony breathes through the cracks. The wall, the posters, the slogans, they all repeat the same chant. Protection, unity, strength. But the faces that pass by them, real, tired, human, do not echo those words. They walk on, quietly, carefully. A teenage boy on a bicycle skids slightly as he rides past. He doesn't look at the posters. He's done looking. He's heard the slogans since birth. They are wallpaper to him now. I touch one of the surfaces, a corner where the paper has pulled free. Beneath it is another layer, older, a different slogan. Für Frieden und Freundschaft, for peace and friendship. I peel back just enough to see a third poster below, almost unreadable now, layer upon layer of instruction, every generation covered by the next.
And beneath them all, the wall, silent, cracked, honest. There's a rhythm to these slogans, a kind of incantation. In state-controlled broadcasts, on street corners, in school books, they repeat and repeat, not to persuade, but to remain, to be the only voice left when all others are silent. I sit on a stone bench across from a cluster of them. From this angle, the images seem more surreal, smiling mouths without context, arms raised without reason, the expressions too wide, too clean, hope manufactured. Yet there's something almost tender about their decay. They are, after all, made of paper, vulnerable. They buckle under snow, fade in the sun. They forget their lines. A child walks by with her father, pointing at one of the posters. Warum weint sie nicht? She asks. Why isn't she crying? It's a picture of a young girl holding flowers beneath a banner. Her smile is vacant, as if painted on. The father doesn't answer. He pulls her hand gently, and they continue walking. I stare at the poster a while longer. The girl looks through me. Behind her is a field of wheat, golden and endless, but there is no sky. Some posters have been defaced, not with paint or vandalism, but with time. Rain has warped the features, mold has crept in. A layer of frost outlines the edges, making halos around the figures. It's almost beautiful, like ruins. These are monuments too, not of what was achieved, but of what was promised. In 1988, East Germany still maintains strict control over public messaging. Artists, musicians, writers, everyone operates within narrow lanes. But on these walls, even the officially sanctioned messages begin to crumble, not from rebellion, but from reality. I come across a cluster of small flyers hastily glued in a corner behind a mailbox. Not official, not stylized, just text, typed with uneven margins. It reads, Stille ist nicht Zustimmung. Denken ist kein Verbrechen. Silence is not agreement. Thinking is not a crime. My breath catches.
Someone put this here. Risked something, however small. The paper is damp, the ink smudged, but the meaning is clear. I look around. No one notices, or they pretend not to. Above the flyers, someone has sketched a tiny bird in charcoal. Just a few strokes, a sparrow, wings mid-flight. I smile softly. These are the posters that matter most.
the ones small enough to hide, fragile enough to vanish, strong enough to stay. I continue walking. The city resumes its quiet chorus, the coal-scented air, the hush of footsteps, the distant murmur of radio broadcasts echoing from tenement windows. But the posters linger in my thoughts. They speak in bold fonts and capital letters, but the truth is softer. It's in the way the edges peel, the way rain stains the heroes' faces, the way no one reads them anymore. I pass one final image before turning a corner. A painted red star, its points blurred, its center torn. Beneath it, the faded words, Träume leben in der Ordnung. Dreams live within order. But I wonder if, perhaps, the dreams have begun to slip out, through the cracks in the paste, beneath the slogans, into the air. East Berlin, 1988. The walls promise everything, but the wind carries questions. A bell rings softly as I push the wooden door open, not loud, more like a suggestion of sound. Inside, warmth rushes toward me like breath held too long. The scent of yeast and grain wraps around my face, laced with something sweeter, perhaps cinnamon, or the faint memory of it. I've stepped into a small bakery nestled between two stone buildings on a quiet street near Friedrichshain. From the outside, it looked unremarkable. An aging awning, two dusty windows, a faint name carved above the door. Bäckerei Weber. But in here, the world shifts. The interior is dim, lit by two low-hanging lamps with frosted glass. Their light pools gently across wooden shelves lined with dark loaves, round and cracked with age and care. I continue walking. A single radio whispers from the back, classical music, perhaps Beethoven again. The volume is so low it could almost be mistaken for silence. Behind the counter stands a woman in her late 50s. Her apron is white, but smudged with flour at the hips. Her hands are thick, strong, and clean. She regards me with the neutrality of someone who has seen everything twice before. Her eyes, however, hold a certain tired kindness. "Guten Abend," she says softly. I return the greeting, my voice lower than usual, matching the hush of the room. She gestures subtly toward the shelves. "Heute noch frisches Roggenbrot und Brötchen." Fresh rye bread and rolls, today's remaining offerings. I nod and choose a round loaf, its crust dark and heavy in my hand. She wraps it carefully in brown paper, folds the edges with quiet precision, and ties it with a thin string. The only other customer stands near the far corner, holding a small bag and sipping something from a ceramic cup. His coat is unbuttoned, his scarf loose. He meets my eyes for a second, then looks away, not with rudeness, but with that practiced East Berlin caution, the art of not noticing. The woman behind the counter finishes wrapping my bread and sets it gently down. "Noch etwas?" she asks. "Anything else?" I shake my head. She tells me the price, modest, almost symbolic. I pay in coins, placing each one carefully in the tray on the counter. Hands do not meet here. Touch is managed with quiet ritual. There are sounds in this place, but they are soft. The creak of old wood beneath shifting weight, the gentle scrape of metal against stone, the quiet thump of bread being set down. But one sound cuts through it all. Voices. Not loud, not confident, but real. An older man enters, holding a cloth bag close to his chest. He nods to the woman, then to the rest of us. No one speaks right away. He shuffles toward the back where the rolls are displayed and picks two without needing to ask. He's done this 100 times. Then he speaks, almost to himself. "Der Wind kommt früh dieses Jahr," he says. The wind is early this year. The woman responds without turning from her work. Vielleicht bringt was Neues. Maybe it brings something new. He chuckles, not loud, but warm. And just like that, a kind of quiet conversation emerges, sparse, careful, broken by pauses, but meaningful, about the weather, about potatoes, about the shortages in Prenzlauer Berg, about how Müller's boy is back from the army, thinner than before. No one says anything dangerous. No one speaks names too loudly. But beneath it all, there is a rhythm, a cadence of shared existence. The man in the corner smiles faintly. Gestern habe ich Westmusik gehört, auf der Mittelwelle. I heard Western music yesterday, on medium wave. Everyone stills, just for a moment, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. Thus Jazz singer, he continues, die mit der kratzigen Stimme, the one with the scratchy voice. Nina Simone, the woman offers. He nods, eyes brightening. Ja, genau, wie ein Schmerz, der schön klingt. Like a pain that sounds beautiful. The silence that follows is almost reverent. I look around. There are cracks in the walls. The floor tiles are uneven. The window panes rattle faintly in their frames. And yet, it is perfect. This bakery is not just a place to buy bread. It is a sanctuary of softness, a corner where language has not yet surrendered to the grayness outside, where the warmth of ovens and the music of flour-dusted voices resist the cold certainties of the street. In 1988, bakeries are often more than bakeries. They are the morning ritual, the evening solace, the quiet checkpoint of the neighborhood. Everyone must eat, and so everyone passes through these doors, even the watchers, even the watched. And within these walls there are conversations that live between the lines, smiles that say more than words, shared silences that carry the weight of decades. I thank the woman softly and take my wrapped bread in both hands. She nods. Bleiben Sie warm, she says. Stay warm. I leave quietly. Outside, the cold greets me like an old friend. The smell of coal returns. My hands grow stiff around the warm bread. I hold it closer, not because of hunger, but because it feels like something alive, something made with care. I look back once. The light from the bakery glows faintly through the frost-covered window. Inside, the old man laughs again. The sound is muted but real. East Berlin, 1988. In the warmth of a bakery, words rise like steam. He stands alone beneath a dim street lamp, its glow stretching out like a weak halo, the color of old parchment. The street around him is nearly empty, just a narrow corridor of wet cobblestones and shuttered windows. The world here is quieter, thicker, slower. I see him from a distance first. The posture is unmistakable, rigid, hands behind the back, legs apart, eyes ahead. The uniform, dark olive and precise, presses him into the scenery like another state-placed object, not a person, but a function. The border guard. He doesn't move, not even to shift his weight. His cap is pulled low over his brow, shadowing his face. But I can feel the watchfulness radiating from him, trained, controlled, constant. He doesn't scan wildly. He doesn't need to. His eyes settle on things, linger, file them away. As I approach, I slow my pace. Not out of guilt, not fear exactly, but something older, something I can't quite name. A deeply learned reflex, born from walking streets like this too long, in a time like this. I glance at him casually, pretending not to. His face is younger than I expected. 20, maybe? The skin beneath his cap is smooth, his mouth too tight for his age. But it's the eyes that linger with me. They're not cruel. They're not kind either. They're searching. For what? I don't know. I pass by slowly. My boots echo, a soft cadence in the cold. He doesn't speak. But I feel the weight of his gaze settle on me like snow. Not heavy, just certain. There's a saying whispered in East Berlin apartments. Die Straße sieht alles. The street sees everything. But sometimes it's not the street. It's the man at the corner. I glance once more over my shoulder after I pass him. He hasn't turned. Still a statue, still silence. But the street feels different now, slightly more brittle. Ahead, a group of 3 people emerges from a side alley, a couple with an elderly woman between them, wrapped in scarves and leaning on a cane. They pass the guard. He says nothing. They say nothing, but the woman glances at him for just a second longer than the others. And then they vanish around the bend. In 1988, guards like this one are everywhere and nowhere. Some are posted at visible checkpoints. Others walk in pairs through neighborhoods, boots clicking in perfect synchrony. Some blend in with crowds. Some never show their faces, but everyone knows they exist. Their presence shapes the space around them like stones shape a river's current. I imagine the man at the corner waking up this morning, eating in silence, pressing his uniform flat with practiced hands, adjusting the angle of his cap in a mirror that reflects nothing else. I wonder what he thinks about as he stands here, or whether he's trained not to. A truck passes, its tires spitting mist from the wet street. It honks once, then fades into the night. The guard shifts, slightly, enough to crack the stillness. He lifts one hand to his collar and adjusts it, not nervous, not deliberate, just human. And that's what I keep thinking. He's still human, even here, even now. There's an old myth among children in East Berlin that guards don't sleep, that they stay at their posts through the night like watchful ghosts, that they remember every face, that they know when someone lies just by the sound of their voice. I remember hearing this from a boy near Alexanderplatz. He told me, solemnly, that if a guard looked at you twice, you had to change your route home, just to be safe. I didn't laugh. Now, as I continue walking, I try not to look back again. The urge to glance over your shoulder to check if you're being followed is strong in places like this. But sometimes the greatest protection is in pretending not to care. At the end of the block, another figure approaches from the opposite direction, a young woman in a navy blue coat. She walks briskly, her heels ticking against the stone in crisp rhythm. As she nears the guard, she slows just slightly, not out of deference, but calculation. They meet eyes briefly, and in that moment, something passes between them. Recognition? A history? Or nothing at all? She continues walking, and so do I. We are all part of the choreography. As I round the corner, the guard fades from sight, but not from feeling. His presence remains like the echo of a bell that was never rung. I enter a quieter street now. The light here is weaker, filtered through fogged glass and laundry lines. I pass an old bulletin board nailed to the wall of a building, its papers damp and peeling. One is a list of local food distributions. Another is a notice about electricity rationing. And one, smaller, reads simply, Abends bitte keine Fensterbeleuchtung zur Straße hin. Please avoid window lighting toward the street at night. I think of the guard again, of his eyes, of what they see, and of what they choose not to. East Berlin, 1988. The corner belongs not to traffic, but to the silence that watches. It begins as a murmur, faint, fragile, like the whisper of a thought you aren't sure you're allowed to have. A flicker of melody under static, a voice not meant to reach you, but somehow it does. I follow the sound, down a narrow stairwell tucked between two tenements, the door above me left slightly ajar. The concrete here smells of damp walls and metal.
The sound grows stronger, not louder, but more distinct. Jazz. A saxophone, smooth and melancholy, slides beneath the interference like a secret slipping through a crack in the world. It's coming from behind a door, thin wood, the paint chipped, a number barely visible beneath layers of dust. The sound leaks out gently, as if the walls themselves are trying to keep it quiet. I do not knock. I do not enter. I simply sit on the cold stairs, one step above the threshold, and listen. The broadcast is coming through an old radio. I can picture it clearly, the dials glowing amber, a coat draped over the speaker to muffle the volume. It's not Berliner Rundfunk. This isn't state music. This is West. Maybe RIS, Rundfunk im amerikanischen Sektor, or BBC, or Radio Free Europe. Each illegal, each dangerous, each lifeline. In 1988, possession of Western media is officially discouraged. Listening to foreign broadcasts can be questioned. Sharing them is worse. But still, they listen, quietly, carefully, rebelliously. The music continues, now a slow piano, each note deliberate, echoing in the silence of cement and caution. I close my eyes. The room behind that door becomes vivid in my mind. A woman in her 30s sits at a kitchen table. A mug of weak tea rests beside her elbow. The curtains are drawn. Her radio is wrapped in cloth. She leans close, listening to the voice of a man speaking in slow, steady German, not the flat, rehearsed tone of state newscasters, but something warmer, something real. He tells her about news she will never see printed, about voices she has never heard, about places she cannot visit. And still, she listens. Not because she believes it all, but because it is different. That difference matters more than truth. The static rises suddenly, harsh and rattling, a jamming signal likely. The state invests heavily in radio jamming. Certain frequencies are drowned with hissing, warbling interference, but the broadcasters know how to change bands.
And the listeners, they learn how to find them again. I hear the woman behind the door adjust the frequency slightly. The hiss fades, the voice returns. Another saxophone, another promise. I remember something someone once told me, whispered in the corner of a cafe near Ostkreuz. The state builds walls, but music finds the cracks. Here, in this stairwell, I feel that truth settle into me like warmth. Someone opens a window above. A gust of cold air slips down the stairwell, and with it, a new sound. A faint choir from a nearby church, perhaps, or a neighbor's humming. The world continues, but down here, in this small space, the broadcast becomes sacred. The song fades, another begins, a ballad, a woman's voice, low and soulful. Nina Simone again? Maybe. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. The irony cuts deeper than the cold. I think of others who must be listening at this very moment, in bedrooms, under blankets, in garages, in basements, ear pressed to speaker, one hand ready to kill the sound should someone knock. This isn't entertainment. It's breath. I rise slowly and continue along the side street, my ears still tuned to that invisible thread of sound. I imagine it traveling through the air, carried by invisible waves, skimming rooftops and ducking beneath the sensors of towers. As I walk, I pass a telephone booth. Inside, a boy no older than 16 stands, the receiver to his ear. He's not speaking, just listening. His eyes flick up as I pass. We share no words, but I wonder what frequency he's tuned to, what messages he's trying to decode. Beyond him, a rooftop antenna sways gently in the wind. Not government standard, it points west. At the end of the street, another apartment block rises, its balconies stacked like tired thoughts. On one, a small satellite dish, cleverly disguised as a flowerpot tray, faces toward the forbidden horizon. Behind it, the faint glow of television dances on the curtains.
A voice escapes through a cracked window. Heute in den Nachrichten aus dem Westen. Today, in the news from the West. And then, silence. The window closes quickly. Even the air feels complicit. I pass a small shop front, its blinds drawn, a handwritten sign taped to the glass. Technische Reparaturen, Radios, Uhren, Plattenspieler. Technical repairs, radios, clocks, record players. Inside, a man hunched over a disassembled receiver. He holds a soldering iron like a pen, his brow furrowed. Perhaps he repairs state radios, perhaps he modifies them. Both truths can exist at once. He doesn't look up. In this city, everyone knows when not to look. I pause beside a drain pipe, leaning slightly against the wall, the scent of frost and coal in the air. Above me, a window glows blue. A television flickers within, cycling between static and signal. The sound is muted, but I know the rhythm. It's not East German programming. It's something else, something illegal, something needed. In 1988, the wall is still up, but the airwaves cannot be contained. They slip past stone, through wires, beneath doors. They offer not certainty, but possibility. And in a place where even thought feels policed, possibility is everything. I continue walking. Behind me, the stairwell fades into silence. The radio is turned off. The voice is gone. But the echo remains. East Berlin, 1988. The forbidden sounds are the ones we remember. The park appears like a quiet breath held between the bricks and wires of East Berlin, a patch of open space surrounded by apartment blocks and low fences, its trees bare, its benches damp from the mist. I enter slowly, letting my boots sink slightly into the soft ground, the silence deepening with each step. There are no voices here, no laughter, no conversations, no barking dogs or squealing children, only the creak of an old swing moving in the wind. It sways gently, aimlessly, one chain a little longer than the other, giving it a limp. The sound it makes is metallic and slow, a soft, uneven groan that echoes across the empty playground. I pause to watch it. For a moment, I imagine a child still sits there, swinging alone, head tilted to the side, watching me silently as I pass. But the swing is empty. The sand beneath it is untouched. A forgotten shovel lies nearby, half buried, rusted, with a cracked red handle.
This place was built for joy, but joy is a memory here. Like everything else in East Berlin, it lives beneath the surface. I walk further into the park, past a broken seesaw and a row of skeletal trees. Their branches reach upward like questions, unanswered and unbending. The leaves are long gone. Only frost remains, gathered in little white veins along the bark, shimmering faintly in the low light. The park once served as a gathering place, that much is clear. Benches circle a central clearing. A stone fountain sits at the center, drained and dry. Moss grows between the cracks. The figures carved into the fountain, children, animals, cheerful workers, are worn down to vague shapes, their eyes erased by rain and time. A pigeon flutters from the fountain's edge, startled by my presence. It is the only movement for several minutes. I sit on one of the benches, the wood cold and damp beneath me. The silence here is different than the city streets. It's not heavy with watchfulness. It's soft, almost gentle, a kind of sleep. I breathe slowly. The smell of damp earth mixes with faint coal smoke from nearby chimneys. The frost gives everything a silver lining. Even the sorrow feels delicate. Far away, a train passes. The sound arrives like a dream, muted, rhythmic, then gone. And still, the swing creaks. In 1988, many parks in East Berlin feel like this. Not neglected exactly, but paused, waiting. Their structures are maintained enough to function, but rarely refreshed. Paint peels. Sandboxes erode. Flowers are no longer planted in neat rows, only weeds blooming at the edges. They are not for play. Not really. More for reminder of something better that was promised, or something lost. I think of the families who must have walked here, the children running between the swings and the seesaws, the mothers sharing quiet conversations on the benches. I wonder what was said, what was allowed to be said, and what was only felt. A few meters away, I see a man with a cane walking slowly along the edge of the park. He doesn't notice me, or pretends not to. His movements are deliberate, his gaze low. Perhaps this was once his route to school, or to a lover's home. Now it's just exercise. He disappears behind a hedge without ever looking up. I rise from the bench and walk toward the edge of the playground. There, along the fence, someone has scratched something into the wooden post, faint, nearly invisible beneath the peeling green paint. A name, 2 initials, a heart. I run my finger across it. The wood is rough, splintered slightly. The message is not political, not profound, just human. I imagine 2 teenagers here, maybe 10 years ago, carving that mark together as the sun set. Maybe they still live in the same apartment blocks. Maybe they pass by that fence every day. Maybe they've forgotten. But the mark remains. I continue through the park, the path narrowing and bending around a small hill. At the top, a rusted climbing structure stands, half buried in grass, its metal bars slick with ice. It resembles a cage more than a playground. No one climbs it anymore. Beyond the park, I can see the tops of buildings, gray roofs, old chimneys, the faint glint of satellite dishes hidden behind parapets. A few windows flicker with light, but from here it's hard to tell if the lights mean life or simply routine. I stay a while longer.
The wind brushes through the park gently, carrying with it the rustling of dry leaves trapped beneath the bushes. A plastic bag flutters across the clearing, catching briefly on a bench before escaping into the air again. The swing has finally stilled. For the first time since I arrived, the entire park holds its breath. And I realize it feels like a place preparing for something. For change, for collapse, for spring. I don't know, but I sense it. And as I prepare to leave, I notice something small near the path. A child's mitten, damp and forgotten. Pale blue, woolen, a string still attached, likely meant to loop through a coat sleeve. It lies limp in the grass, curled like a sleeping hand. I don't pick it up. Some things are meant to remain where they were lost. I walk away from the park, the swing silent behind me. The trees whisper nothing. The footprints I leave are shallow, already fading into the frost-softened path. East Berlin, 1988. In the empty park, the silence swings alone. The street narrows as if retreating from what lies ahead. The buildings lean inward, closer now. Brick and plaster pressed together like figures in quiet conversation. Overhead, the sky is a deep slate, the light fading not into black, but into something softer, like memory being dimmed rather than night falling. This is the last street before the wall. I know it instinctively, not because of signs, there are none, but because of the feeling, a density in the air, a stillness that has shape. Every building, every shutter, every breath here carries a quiet edge. The cobblestones are worn, uneven, but polished by decades of feet. Rushed feet, hesitant feet, careful feet. My own join them now, adding another silent verse to the pavement's long poem. The soles of my boots press softly into the cold stone as I move, each step echoing between walls that seem to draw closer with each meter. The windows on this street are different, lower, thicker glass. The kind that distorts light and blurs silhouettes. Curtains are drawn tight, even at this hour. I pass one, and behind it a candle glows, steady, deliberate, not decorative. A signal, perhaps, or simply a comfort. In this city, sometimes there is no difference. I pause beneath a lamppost, its orange bulb humming faintly. The light casts long shadows across the wet stones, stretching them like thoughts too old to hold properly. The bench beneath it is empty, but damp footprints stain its wood. Someone sat here recently. Someone waited. Ahead, the wall curves into view again, like the edge of a cliff. But this street pretends not to notice. It continues forward, as if it could go on forever, even as it ends abruptly against that brutal border. A woman appears on a balcony 3 floors up. She is smoking, arms resting on the railing, her face turned toward the sound of my footsteps. She doesn't speak. Her cigarette burns steadily, the embers small and constant. Her presence is not intrusive. She simply exists, like the city itself. Behind her, laundry hangs unmoving, shirts and trousers stiff with frost. One sleeve stirs slightly in the breeze, and it looks for a moment like a wave. Then it is still. I continue. At the end of the street, the buildings stop. Not with a flourish, not with a sign. They simply end, and in their place is the wall. It rises again, mute and gray, indifferent. But here, so close, its scale feels different. Not taller, but heavier. The space before it is empty. No trees, no benches, no parked bicycles. Just an absence. The kind of absence that speaks louder than presence. A narrow alley branches off to the right. I follow it briefly, drawn by a sound, barely there, like breath against glass. At its end, a metal door sits recessed into a wall, unmarked but clearly used.
A man stands nearby, smoking with one hand, holding a clipboard with the other. He wears no uniform. His coat is long, civilian.
But his eyes, sharp, alert, observe everything. He sees me, and I nod politely. He nods back, the motion slow, calculating. I return to the main street. On the sidewalk near the wall, someone has drawn a line in chalk. Not a protest, not a message, just a line, white, wobbly, barely visible now. Perhaps a child once drew it, or someone older, remembering how. It leads nowhere, but it remains. I follow the line with my eyes until it vanishes beneath a manhole cover. Beside it, a scrap of paper flutters against the curb. I stoop to pick it up. It's part of a letter, written in looping handwriting. Sometimes I wonder if they can hear us on the other side. I don't know who the letter was for, or if it was sent, but I fold the paper gently and place it in my coat. Some words are worth carrying. I take a few more steps until I stand just meters from the wall. There is no one here now, not even the guards. Only me, the stone, and the silence. I place my palm against the cold concrete. The chill creeps into my skin almost instantly. It is not welcoming, not hostile, just there. I imagine all the palms that have pressed against this same spot. The tears, the wishes, the fury, the silence. Some part of me listens, not for sound, but for memory. And in that stillness, I feel something. A name, a goodbye, a song hummed quietly through clenched teeth. In 1988, this street is still a dead end, but the air here trembles slightly with anticipation, like a held breath waiting for its release. The city doesn't know it yet, but something is shifting. Even the wall can feel it. I turn around slowly, letting my eyes move down the length of the street. It looks like any other street in East Berlin, stone, gray, reserved. But it is not. This is the edge, and edges, though silent, are where change begins. East Berlin, 1988. At the last street before the wall, footsteps hesitate, but hearts begin to whisper. I linger at the edge. The wall stands behind me, a silent monument to everything unsaid, unmoved. Ahead stretches the street I walked, quiet and unchanged, but now seen differently, through the lens of finality. There is something about being at the end of a road that makes every crack in the pavement seem meaningful. Every window glows a little softer. Every breath hangs longer in the cold. I walk slowly, retracing my steps through East Berlin's concrete arteries, but this time not forward. This is not a journey of arrival now, but of letting go. The air has shifted slightly. The city holds its breath, like a violin string stretched to the brink before a final note. My boots touch the ground more gently now, as if I'm afraid to disturb something delicate that floats between these walls and windows. Memory, perhaps, or sleep. Around me, buildings remain unchanged, but the silence they emit feels warmer now, as if my passing earlier stirred some faint current, some ripple in the stillness. The bakery is closed now. Its window dark, its warmth a memory I hold in my hands like the loaf I carried earlier. No longer hot, but still whole. I imagine the woman inside turning down the lamps, folding the cloths, brushing the flour from her fingers, her radio silent. On a balcony, a coat hangs like a flag of routine.
The same woman from before, perhaps, now gone inside. Her cigarette stub rests on the railing, the ash perfectly balanced, unmoved by wind. I look up. No stars, just haze. A thick gray dome sealing the city from the sky. A tram passes slowly in the distance, its bell faint and restrained, as if aware of the quiet it disturbs. I do not turn to watch it go. Instead, I pause in the park once more. The swing no longer moves. The trees seem older now. I sit on the same bench. The wood is colder. The fog has thickened. I close my eyes, and I hear them. Not voices, not speech, but textures of sound. The whisper of frost beneath boots. The sigh of curtains behind closed windows.
The murmur of forbidden radio waves threading through rooftops. The shuffle of bread wrapped in paper. The breath of a woman watching from her balcony. All layered into a single gentle hum. The voice of a city not speaking, but still heard. I rise. My legs are heavier now, not with fatigue, but with presence. Each step back through this night, through this frozen Berlin, feels like a thread pulled loose from a tapestry I've only just begun to understand. The streets do not beg me to stay. They offer no farewell. But the silence that surrounds me is no longer indifferent. It is familiar. At a corner, the guard is gone. Only his footprint remains, shallow and sharp in the frost. It will vanish soon. I don't follow it. I simply continue. The streetlights flicker in slow rhythms, casting elongated reflections onto puddles that mirror nothing but light. The chalk line I saw before is still there, even fainter now. Perhaps the snow will cover it tonight, perhaps not. I reach the courtyard where the boy once emptied his bucket of ash. The hatch is closed. The soot is gone. The chimney exhales a single lazy plume of smoke that curls upward and disappears. I stand in the center of the square. Close my eyes again. Listen. The concrete speaks more softly now, not in words, but in impressions. In the hush that wraps itself around door frames. In the rhythm of a city that does not sleep, but drifts. Drifts on breath, on boots, on memory. I lay my hand on a cold wall beside me. It's chipped, unremarkable, damped with condensation. And yet, it holds something. Not power, not tragedy, just time. The way a tree trunk holds rings. The way a breath held too long becomes sacred. East Berlin, 1988. The year presses itself into these walls like a fingerprint. Tomorrow will come, unchanged, but not forever. And I will step back into the fog. One last glance upward, the sky thick with silence. One last step forward, the path receding behind me. I do not say goodbye. I do not whisper promises. I simply walk. Wrapped in the scent of coal smoke and wet stone, carrying with me nothing but footsteps, and the echo of a city that never shouted, but somehow always spoke. The city fades now, not suddenly, but like steam lifting from warm stone, like breath settling beneath thick blankets. East Berlin retreats into the hush it wears so well, its corners softening, its edges dissolving into mist. I no longer walk, I drift. The wall is distant now, only a thought, only a shadow behind my eyes. The swing in the empty park moves one last time in my mind. The coal smoke curls gently upward, painting silver spirals against the fog. A loaf of bread rests on a wooden counter, still warm. A tram bell echoes, then fades. A candle flickers in a curtained window. A child's mitten sleeps beneath a frost-covered bench. And the silence deepens. Deeper still, as if the city too has closed its eyes. The rhythm of footsteps slows. I no longer count the buildings. I no longer feel the cold. I float through avenues of memory, where the walls breathe slowly, and the air hums with all that was once said, or left unsaid. The radios are silent now, but their songs remain in the cracks of old bricks and the soft fibers of curtains. I press my palm once more against the concrete. It no longer feels cold, only still, only real. East Berlin, 1988. The last trams have returned to their depots. The last windows have gone dark. The last whispers have settled into the stones. And you, dear traveler, you may rest now. Let the scent of coal linger like comfort. Let the rhythm of boots guide you into dreams. Let the silence of old streets carry you gently, slowly, into sleep. Sleep now. And when you dream, may the echoes of these walls walk beside you. Good night, traveler of time. May your dreams carry the soft wind of East Berlin, the quiet rhythm of stone, and the memory of a city that whispered.